ready.
All right, we rolling?
Yeah,
all right,
ready.
welcome old family and new family to Cypher Scholars, part education, part hip-hop, all culture. This is your co-host, Brandon White, or Bushido Garvey, as I'm known in many MC circles.
And it's your boy Rob Blow, your friend Rob Blow on the board on the text.
Yes. For those who don't know, Cypher Scholars is, again, part education, part hip-hop, all culture that's always part local, part global, and universal. Peace to all our live viewers who will be hopping on the live. We got a busy syllabus today. What's on our syllabus today, homie?
We got Congress. We got the Congress Muslim woman.
Yep, Ilhan Omar.
Ilhan Omar. We have De La Soul, and we also have I.C.E. ICE immigration students.
ICE and student persecution for sure. Peace to Uncle Harvey. Appreciate you listening, sir. So let's hop right to it with ICE and immigration and students. So we know immigration has become a major hot button topic. In the past 3 to 4 years, a lot of lives have been impacted grossly negatively, right? By commands for a border wall and family separations. But one area of that whole reality that often doesn't get addressed is the classroom. Right? Where students have to live in fear of whether or not they're going to be taken out of the country, in their communities, when they're traveling somewhere else. I don't know about you. Have you ever been on the bus, like a bus traveling somewhere to another town or city, and ICE or what are they called?
Customs.
Not customs. Who are the Border Patrol hops on the bus and they look around like Gestapo to figure out who's immigrant and who isn't, profiling people. They got to worry about that. But one space that the worry often isn't talked about is the classroom. First of all, some of the stats show that since Trump's election, roughly 80% of students who are illegal immigrants have been their worry and their confusion and their depression has increased because of this election, because they have new things to worry about, right? Their family got to be on guard, they got to be on guard. And in the case of some students, they can get not exposed, but kind of extracted out of schools. There was one story I was reading where this one high schooler got in a fight with a girl who called him a wetback. Got in a fight with a girl who called him a wetback. He's a senior. He went to the cop to tell him what happened. The cop processed him and arrested him. When he arrested him, he told the county sheriff. The county sheriff then brought him to ICE and had him in detention centers. This was a kid that was about to graduate and was as quiet as all possible, but got in a fight because he was called a racial slur. And he got caught up. Now, thankfully for the advocacy of his community, right? There were teachers that spoke up. There were other community folk that spoke up. They fought for him to be able to stay, and they paid for his bail. But think about how many kids don't have the access. Their family don't have the access to pay the bail, or don't have school teachers or administrators that would advocate for them like that in these situations.
That's a crazy turn of events right there for to have people advocated for them. But that's what a lot of these immigrants do have to deal with. Now, I think this particular person that you're talking about was brought here in the United States when he was just young, so he had no say in him being an undocumented immigrant when he got here to the United States. He basically grew up in the situation where he had to make just do. Now, he came from Honduras, I believe, correct?
I believe so, yeah. They're going to send him to war-torn
Honduras.
Honduras.
And 5 years prior, they left Honduras to find a better location. Now, usually in situations like this, and I've read many articles that stated this, those young undocumented immigrants, those youthful students, those young kids are usually the breadwinners of the family.
Yeah, that's what
they are the ones that have to work long hours, go to school, make money, help pay bills, help take care of family members, those that might be too young to take care of themselves. And they also have to worry, on top of all of that, they have to worry about DACA being done away with through the Trump administration. They have to worry about being profiled unjustly, unfairly, because they didn't ask to be in this situation for most of these students or these kids, these youth people.
It's all bug to me, just because you're right. Like I discovered that too. It was just like, yo, like there are students who are working anywhere between 25 to like 40 hours.
Yeah, man.
To stack bread, to survive, to help pay their parents' bills. Yep. There was one situation where there was this one student who was saving money, I think cleaning houses with her mother, right? Whoa. And was saving money for tuition. Yeah, right, but because her grandmother was sick back in Mexico, they gave that $1,500 for her to get well. You know, ooh. So we're talking about hardworking, family-oriented people. Mm-hmm. Something that many Americans can be learning from. Mm-hmm. Being at threat of being taken out of this country and having to return to a country that is currently going through it, and sometimes due to U.S. intervention, that country is going through it. Yep.
Particularly
in like Central America, like Guatemala, like Honduras,
Venezuela,
like Venezuela, like all these places frequently have had to deal with U.S. instigation or interference, which had either straight up was like the main fault of the dysfunction, or was like a contributing piece to the dysfunction. And then they find way to America to still have this integrity that is contrary to the whole rapist accusation that Trump made, just for them to still be threatened and have to hire like Anne Frank to not be taken back to a messed up situation that the U.S. again might have had something to do with.
Yeah. Just to add on top of that, you're saying the U.S. has parts in this. Like you could look at the Board of Education. You got the head of the Board of Education that goes by the name of Betsy DeVos, she actually allowed teachers to basically report on students that are undocumented.
Yep, and
within the school settings.
Yep, she like initially she said something like, "Well, that's at the discretion of like the school building and the sheriffs or whatever." When there are more clear rules about how to go about that, and then she had to backpedal a bit because folks are at her head, and she was like, "Well, the rules that are there should be followed, and the rules are right like." That schools should be technically sanctuaries. Technically should be sanctuaries for students, and that no matter a child's immigration status, they should receive the education. Yes. It's also labeled as a, what do they call it? A sensitive location, like church, funeral, school, other places like that. But there's technically not hospitals, exactly. Yep. There's technically not a law saying that ICE can't. It just looks bad if they do.
But no, there's a possible law. Right. There's a act that goes by the name of Protecting Sensitive Locations Act that could possibly get passed that will protect those undocumented people within the school grounds, hospital grounds, the places, etc.
Yeah, schools.
Yep,
indeed, because.
But it's not, this is probably being talked about in House of Representatives as we speak now.
Right. The news report about that, at least the one I got from Education Week, was from a week or two ago when it was being introduced largely by Jose Serrano.
Okay.
So
all right.
I'm looking forward to that being pushed through, because again, these students are being, first of all, they don't always have the best shake. Again, they work crazy hours, which doesn't allow them to exactly. It doesn't allow them to take part in the extracurriculars that one, a student should just enjoy, and then two, look good for college application. Right. So the dream of like college and post high school, college and career becomes even harder to achieve because of the stress. First of all, just always having to look over your shoulder, and then second of all, having to frequently work in these situations, and third of all, not being able to receive state tuition. They got
that's what I'm saying. I was gonna say some of those undocumented students, it'll be hard for them to even get into college because they're undocumented, right?
Right.
DACA allows you to work as long as you have a GED or are in school or something along those lines. So with the Trump administration trying to do away with DACA, that's more of an obstacle that the students will have to get over to to try to win ends meet. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Just real quick on stats, real quick. You got with undocumented immigrants, you have 65,000 undocumented immigrants that are able to that usually graduate
Right.
in the course of a year, right, yearly, and only 5 to 10% of them go to college, right, and then only 1 to 3% of them graduate college.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's like
So
less than 1,000 people. That gotta be like less than 1,000 people.
Word.
I don't even know, man. But
and honestly, yo, like I feel like when you talked about that, then we're probably gonna have to move on to Omar. I'll talk about Omar in the next part of the syllabus. But like that right there, I feel like so that was Obama era legislation.
Yes.
DACA. Here's the difference again between Democrat, like establishment Democrat, and Republican. Right, Republican will be like screw, not all of them obviously, but in terms of like the party line, especially with Trump in office, screw all immigrants. At least the ones that don't look like white folks. Screw all immigrants. Right, forget DACA. These people are criminals. They're rapists. Blah blah blah. We need to build a wall. Right, and it's easy to be like that's packed with hatred and issues.
Yep.
The Democrat way is a lot more slicker. It was like, all right, we'll pass something called DACA, but not everybody. It's going to be hard for everybody to be eligible for it that needs it.
Okay.
And we're also not going to allow you to really, even though you pay taxes, we're not going to allow you to have state-based tuition. Like, think about how much that decreases the success of the people you're supposedly trying to help. It's just more slide. It's more slide of a oppression.
Yeah, it makes it harder.
What Obama did. Excuse me, than what Trump did.
Makes it harder for those people to become middle-class citizens.
Yeah.
A lot harder.
You're not really trying to help them win. You're not. That's not an equitable move. Like trying to. And again, I heard a Latinx sister say this one time. Like, you know how like Malcolm X said Plymouth Rock we didn't land on Plymouth Rock. What was it?
Plymouth Rock landed on us.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sis said we didn't cross the border crossed us. And when you look at the paperwork. And when you look at the history, that's largely true. So just because you take something of somebody's doesn't mean that they're going to forget that it was theirs in the first place. Even if you put your decor on it, even if you do some renovation, they're still going to walk up in that house because it was originally theirs and you kind of took it. Right? So
that's true.
But moving on though. So speaking of folk of color in politics, let's talk about Sister Ilhan Omar real quick.
Ilhan Omar,
and peace to all the listeners. Cam, appreciate you on Facebook Live. Yeah.
All right. So Ilhan Omar recently got the spotlight shined on her through a comment that she made in Washington D.C. at a location at a restaurant called Bus Boys and Poets. Yeah. This was sometime last week. It was a speech that I believe lasted more than 6 minutes long, but a lot of people focused on this one sentence. She was condemned for saying, "I want to talk about the political influence that says that it's okay to push for allegiance to a foreign country," referring to Israel. Yeah. A lot of people had a problem with it. One person that did have a problem with it was a Democrat that goes by the name of Elliot Engel. He called it an anti-Semitic slur. Yeah. One person that kind of stood up for that statement was Bernie Sanders. Yeah. He basically said something like to the effect of as long as it's legitimate criticism, it shouldn't be a problem. Yeah. You know what I mean?
For sure. And I think that in addition to what happened at Bus Boys and Poets, I think there might have been some things that happened prior to in terms of like commentary. But like, first of all, shout outs to Ilhan Omar, Rashida, I forget how to pronounce her last name.
You talking about a second congresswoman?
Yeah.
That's Muslim? Yeah, they kind of singled those two out unfairly.
I will say though, like to kind of push back on, we're the only ones getting singled out. Your boy Mark Lamont Hill, who's not even a senator, made comments and got lambasted for talking about the inequities and the oppression that the Israeli state is doing against the Palestinians. So, like, it's definitely a across the board thing where if you do speak on Israel and their extremely terrible treatment of the Palestinian folk, like you do get criticized and you get accused of anti-Semitism.
Yep. All right, so let's break that down real quick. Anti-Semitism, right? Yeah. So let's just break down the word. So if you were to like look at the suffix and prefix of the word and put it all together, you have let's say if you break the word apart, you have the word anti-Semitism, right? Anti means to go against, right? Semi is, if you look up that word, that means is relating to Arabs, Assyrians, etc. And ism, I forgot what that part is.
Well, like a process or a system or a way of thinking or theorizing, for sure.
All right, so if you were to look at it like that, that would be considered a misnomer. Yeah. Now, the person that coined the term anti-Semitism was a guy that goes by the name of Friedrich Wilhelm Mar Adolf.
Friedrich Wilhelm?
Yeah, Friedrich Wilhelm Mar, or Friedrich Wilhelm Adolf Mar. He was a publicist back in the 1870s of Germany, and he was the one to coin that term anti-Semitism. So just to give you a little background on that, but it's really a misnomer. But
well, so it's to my understanding, like, and a lot of this like ties into like biblical history too.
Okay.
Right, because like in terms of like Noah's sons, right? One of them was Shem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And
yep.
Shem is like the father of all those like Semitic nations,
yeah.
which to my understanding, where Hebrews originated from, is from those areas, like that part of was Southwest Asia,
okay, which
actually incorporates some of like the African continent, because like languages like Ge'ez and Aramaic, which are like Ethiopian, are technically in that family of Semitic languages.
Okay,
right. So I personally can see how there's a connectivity between the term, maybe the term and how it's used, because it only gets used when you're talking about like usually white Jewish people.
Yes. Yep.
Right. Yep. It's almost explicitly used as such.
Yeah.
Right. But like it has some of it, like that's part of it. Yep. But like there's so many other pieces of what Semitic languages or Semitic peoples are and were, which speaks to, again, part of one of Israel's challenges, which is including other Hebrew people of Hebrew descent into the fold of Israel. They have a nasty history of oppressing like Ethiopian Jews that try to get citizenship. Like
in Israel?
In Israel.
Wow.
Yeah, they have a crazy history with that too. Ooh. So like, but to Omar's point, when you talk about any of these things, when you talk about the state of Israel, not Jewish people.
Yep.
When you talk about the state of Israel, you run into problems. And her argument is because the lobby, whether it's Kufi, it was Christians United for Israel. Yep. And I talk about this as a Christian, right? And what's the other one? APAC or something like that? I forgot the exact.
I don't remember.
But like these are powerful lobbies that really make sure that Israel, one, is taken care of financially, and then two, criticism of Israel is shut down. Let me ask you, how much have we been criticizing Russia and China?
A lot, right? A lot.
Are we making any accusations of we're anti-Russian? Oh, that's anti-Russian.
No, not at all. Not
anti-Chinese,
at all.
Anti-Asian.
Right. You know what I mean? But these are, and on top of that, these are also legitimate criticisms of Russia and China. Right? So why can't we have,
not of their people or the people who live here? Like it's
not like, if you were to listen to the speech, the audience, if you were to listen to the speech, you will. There's a broader meaning behind the speech. Yeah. She did not outright disrespect Israel at all. Right. You know what I mean? She made a rational judgment on what she see in the U.S. lobbying, and in the U.S. in terms of lobbying. You know what I mean? With people lobbying for these. You can't. She basically said in her speach that you could talk about facts. You could talk about big pharma companies. You could talk about all this other stuff.
NRA,
but NRA, yep. But when it comes to talking about the lobbying,
pro-Israel lobby,
pro-Israel lobbies, then you will get shunned. You will get scrutinized. You will get downplayed, right? Downtrodden. But overall, she basically said that she's a Muslim woman, right? She's a woman, first of all. She's Muslim, and she's from another country, right?
Right.
She's immigrant.
Is she?
Yeah. She's from Somalia.
Okay. She was born in Somalia, came here.
I believe so. I believe so.
All right. Cool.
So she basically said that she went through hatred. She knows what it feels like to be hated on. She knows what it feels to be demeaned on. I mean, so when she does speak on this, she's speaking from that place where you should speak up for those people that are being shunned.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
And speaking of being shunned, as much news as her comments or her criticism has gotten, what's gotten less news is the disgusting retaliation from actual Republican legislative folk who have compared her or correlated her with the 9/11 attacks and a lot of Islamophobic language and rhetoric that has gotten used on her. Now again, she's come with facts and she's getting hyper scrutinized and criticized. There are people who are actually spewing venom and hatred against her, and it's getting way less press. And at the same time, the
people
Democrats are like trying to figure out as an establishment, because she's like one of these more progressive Democrats. Again, shout outs to her. Shout outs to Rashida.
I heard that term, progressive Democrats. These young Democrats.
They want all the smoke. They want all the smoke. AOC, and there's a couple others, and again, all these are like, first of all women of color. So salute to all our women of color.
Yep, definitely.
Right. And they're shaking things up. You know what I'm saying? And but the Democrats don't know how to deal with that. They can't hyper criticize them because they know that they're right and they're pushing for the truth, and they know people will be at their heads. But at the same time, they've got to deal with the establishment within their psyche. So they kind of supported her, but didn't, by like putting out a legislation that says there shouldn't be any Islamophobic, sexist, racist, or anti-Semitic, blah. So they threw her under the bus while also like they dry threw her under the bus. You know what I'm saying? Like,
so there was a House resolution that was passed 407 to 23 that talked about the condemnation of all forms of bigotry, including anti-Semitism, racism, and white supremacy, etc. Ilhan Omar was in support of that. And this is something good that came about this situation, this discussion. You know what I mean? So even though she is getting somewhat burnt in the public's eye a little bit, we do have some progress going on in the Congress, you know what I mean, for the government, you know what I mean, for those that are minorities, for those that are being oppressed in some form or fashion.
Indeed. And she's again she's had to, I think it's historic what her, Rashida, AOC, and a couple other women are doing in Congress right now. I think that they'll be in history books because of the way that they're standing. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I really keep on pushing, sisters, and let us please just have less of an alarmist kind of approach to talking about Israel, not about Jewish people, about Israel in the state. You can talk about Nigeria as a government because the government has a lot of corruption and not hate Nigerians. We've been doing that with Chinese folk. We've been doing that with Russian folk. Chinese folk who have also had a lot of racism spewed at them in this country and other places. Right? And they have a history with that. Right? But we're still talking about their government and it's not necessarily like, oh, are we anti-Chinese? Like, no. Like, we're pro accountability. You know what I'm saying? So let's continue to have this dialogue, especially Christians, my fellow Christians. Like, just because in our belief system, these are God's chosen people and they deserve to be protected. Fine, great, I get that. That does not mean our God is also a God of accountability. It's also a God that has also made sure that we stick by the truth no matter what's going on, and that is a proponent of justice. Right? So holding Israel accountable is not an anti-Israeli act. Let's please keep that in mind in the future. Speaking of justice, let's talk about our homies De La.
Let's go. Tommy Boy Records, right? Tommy Boy Records.
What's the line in Ooh Ooh? I swear, Tommy, they did me wrong. Right? I was a blank that got blanked by Tom and his boys, right? On the grind day, and it keeps on happening. what was that? That was on Artificial Intelligence. That was like 2000. They were talking about Tommy Boy, and around 2005 in the Grind Date, they were talking about Tommy Boy in the album. Past couple of years, they've been talking about how they been getting, like totally extorted. And now here we are. What's going on, man?
So recently they did an interview on Sway Universe.
Yeah.
Formerly Sway in the Morning. I don't know. Sway's Universe, Sway in the Morning.
Right.
And they basically had a conversation largely about how Tommy Boy is not paying them for their works that they have created over like 3 albums, I believe, 3 albums or more. And I think that's largely due to their I don't know if it's their contract. I don't know. I believe it's something to do with their contract. And I think that their the staff members at Tommy Boy switched up maybe throughout the years as well. But overall, they're not seeing the just dues from the work that they have produced. They haven't seen publishing. They haven't seen